When I found out my beloved was kidnapped by my own brother, my heart was filled with rage and despair. But in this world full of betrayal, I must stay calm because every decision I make concerns the life of my lover. Chapter 31. We ventured outside, our friends trailing behind us. The air was thick with tension as everyone anxiously awaited Bradley's arrival. Reese emerged from the forest, his clothes in tatters, with Damien following close behind. The usual playfulness in Damien's demeanor had vanished, replaced by a serious, protective aura befitting his royal status. Beckett, who had gone to search for Reese, appeared beside Damien, his observant eyes scanning the area. Miles, ever helpful, offered Reese a fresh set of clothes, which he gratefully accepted and quickly donned. "I'll kill him, I swear to God," Reese growled, his aggressive nature barely contained. Apollo, ever the voice of reason, reminded him, "We know you want to, but you have to control yourself. He's using Eleanor as leverage." Damien scoffed, his disgust evident. "What a sick move, taking the mate of your own brother for leverage. This guy has no heart." Beckett shook his head, his words laced with disbelief. Suddenly, an unfamiliar scent filled my nose. My observant nature kicked in, and I knew it could only be one person, Bradley. As if on cue, he sauntered into the clearing, Eleanor's unconscious form draped over his shoulder. She was clearly drugged, her usual personality completely subdued. Reese let out a feral growl and moved forward, but Damien, demonstrating his protective instincts, held him back. "Oh, I wouldn't do that if I was you, little bro. Don't want to hand you your dead mate," Bradley taunted, his cruel nature on full display. Bradley bore a striking resemblance to Reese, save for the prominent claw marks marring his face. He caught me staring and smirked, his sadistic personality shining through. "You must be Laxmi," his voice dripping with malice. "Apollo," his protective instincts flaring. "Spat, don't say her name, you bastard." Bradley held his hands up in mock surrender. Oh, the smirk never left his face. "Touchy, are we? Shame that you just found your mate because you're going to lose her very soon." His words sounded like a promise, not a warning, keeping my voice calm despite the pressure. "How did you get here so fast? Lycans run very fast. Plus, I had a plan," Bradley replied, looking pleased with himself. His gaze shifted to Damien, standing protectively next to me. "Wow, a royal family reunion." His voice dripping with sarcasm. "Where's your sister?" "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." "I presume?" Bradley asked, his taunting nature evident. Damien growled in response, causing Bradley to chuckle darkly. "Good thing he is here because someone needs to take over the throne. Once I kill your mate, Apollo, you will no longer be capable of ruling." Bradley laughed, his manipulative plan unfolding. This man was clearly unhinged. His sick idea sent chills down my spine, but I refused to let it show. Any sign of weakness would be an easy target for this sadistic individual. I knew I had to remain calm and keep Apollo calm too. That was not going to be an easy task, especially given his tendency to anger easily. But as his mate, I had to be the voice of reason in this volatile situation. "If you think I will let your filthy hands touch Laxmi, then you are sorely mistaken. I will tear them from your body before you get a chance." Damien growled. Bradley just smirked. "Oh, how could I forget? The prince who wants nothing to do with the royal family. But you just can't get rid of your royal title. How sad. To brothers that have so much power but don't even want it. That's why I'm here. It is only fair that someone who wants the power gets it." "Shut your mouth. There is no one as power, hungry as you, and that is why you will never get what you want. Too much of anything is bad, but you will realize that too late." Bradley scoffed. "As much fun as this has been, it is time for me to leave. Remember, one scratch on me, I'll rip her head off." Hoisting Eleanor higher on his shoulder, Prick. He needed to die. See you soon, Your Majesty. I will so enjoy hearing your screams. Bradley chuckled at me. Both Apollo and Damien let out a loud growl and stepped forward. I reached out and grabbed them both, shaking my head. Don't. This is exactly what he wants. See you soon, old friend. It'll be a fight to the death, Bradley told Apollo. We watched as Bradley walked away with Eleanor. My Lycan was upset, as was I, leaving Eleanor in the clutches of that bastardy. But we had no choice. When they were out of sight, Apollo stormed inside, chucking things across the room. He needed to let out his anger, so I let him. This novel will be daily updated at Miles and Beckett looked at me, but I just shook my head. Damien looked solemn. I didn't realize how much Apollo had to deal with. I smiled sadly. Your brother has to deal with much more. Now he's a mate and his family back, but before, I don't know how he managed it. Damien nodded in agreement before walking over to his brother and pulling him away. Apollo, calm down. Now we must think of a plan. We can't waste any more time. Apollo took deep breaths as his gaze locked onto me. He held his hand out, which I gladly took. Kissing the top of my head, he replied, You're right. We have to get Eleanor back. We all made our way to the study. Reese looked distraught, so I stayed back to talk to him. You better not be blaming yourself. I won't. My behavior pushed her into the arms of my brother. Reese sighed. No, you didn't do anything. The stress got to you. That's okay. I'd be more worried if it didn't. Eleanor's kidnapping was done by Bradley and is his fault, not yours. You focus on getting her back, not blaming yourself. That is more important, I reminded him. Reese smiled. Every day you prove why you are the perfect person to be queen. I bet you don't even realize it. We reached Apollo's study and sat down, trying to think of an idea. Miles suggested we ambush him, but Apollo refused, saying what it predictable and Bradley would be expecting that. Plus, we had no idea where he was hiding. No one could go and look, just in case he harmed Eleanor. It was a mess. Beckett mentioned about bribing him with power and then capturing him. Damien said he wanted power, but right now his main goal was to kill me, so that wouldn't work either. Bradley had us in a fix. Anything we wanted to do, we couldn't. 1, in case he harms Eleanor, and 2, he would be expecting it. He knew these men very well. Our thoughts were interrupted by the phone ringing. Apollo sighed and answered. Hello. Why do you sound so upset? Have you finally come to terms with being your mate? Bradley chuckled. Suddenly everyone was sat upright, looking at each other in worry and confusion. Apollo growled. What do you want? I'll keep it short and simple. The queen for Eleanor? Bradley said. Hanging up now. Apollo couldn't control his temper, wiping everything off his desk in one swipe and breathing heavily. Apollo, calm down. I attempted to calm him down. There is no way I'll telling you who I am. Vivi just apuna vack another way. Apollo buried his face in my neck. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You're the queen. How can we just let you go? Miles clenched his fists. I told that bastard that I would rip his hands before he had a chance to even touch you. Damien cracked his knuckles. I want my mate back badly, but not at the expense of losing you. This novel will be daily updated, that Eleanor would never forgive me, and I could never forgive myself. We will find another way, Reese said. Hearing everyone say those words warmed my heart. But I wasn't stupid. I knew that there was no other way. You all are amazing, but there isn't another way. If there was, then we would have started planning. Bradley has all stumped. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nobel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I faced Apollo. I know that you will come and save me because I believe in you. But you have to believe in yourself too. Apollo growled. Why are you talking like you are going to give yourself up? Because I am. Like hell you are. I won't let you out of my sight. Apollo yelled. Apollo, I tried to reason with him, but he wasn't listening. You're my mate. I am not letting you leave, he insisted. Now my anger was building up. Apollo, think of the bigger picture here. By giving Bradley what he wants, we can bring him down. He will get to cocky it is a perfect way, by risking your life. I don't think so. Apollo refused. Apollo, it is my duty as queen to protect everyone. I can't let Bradley kill another innocent person. You have to believe in me. I know what I am doing. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I just found you. How can I let you go? Apollo's voice broke. I am not going forever. You will find me. Plus, I'm not going to make it easy for Bradley. It will give you time to find me. I can't. I will lock you up, but I will not let you give yourself up. Apollo shook his head as sake. I thought he had finally agreed. Apollo, listen to yourself. You're being selfish. My anger was getting the better of me. I don't care. I am selfish. Apollo seemed not to care. Colin, I snapped. You're thinking with your dick. You're the king. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Use your brain. This is the only way. Apollo also seemed to be struggling to control his Lycan. Do you want to die? Is that why you are so adamant to leave me? Oh, come on. I am not going to die, because I know you will find me. This is the only way to stop him. I threw my hands up in the air. Apollo looked to his brother, who looked at me and sighed. This novel will be daily updated at brother. Laxmi isn't wrong. She's right in thinking that Bradley will slip up when he has her. He will become too cocky, giving us the perfect opportunity to finish him. Apollo didn't seem impressed with that answer. Laxmi isn't stupid. It is a good plan. Plus, our queen isn't weak. She's a badass, Miles pointed out. I smiled at them both. I knew it was hard to go against Apollo, but they did so anyway. Apollo sighed. I need time. That is something we don't have. Apollo, trust me as I trust you. He opened his mouth but closed it again. Sighing, he walked out of his study and headed downstairs. I don't know why you insist on doing this, but at the same time, it makes me proud of you. My mate, the one who thinks of others before herself. Apollo sighed. He rummaged through a drawer and pulled out a ring. I keep this in the most obvious place because no one dares to move it. It was my mother's. She left it with me, and now I am giving it to you. Apollo slipped it on. I will find you before that bastard touches you. Apollo promised. I know you will. He'll be waiting. I kissed him softly on the lips. Let's go kill that bastard. Before we had a chance to head upstairs, a ticking noise caught all our attention. Hey, docent like a Luna didn't get to finish her sentence as a blast threw us all across the room. Sounds of shattered glass and screams pierced my ears. Disoriented, I tried to stand up and find Apollo, but the force of the blast had really affected me. I fell back down on the ground and groaned. Slowly, I tried again. This time when I managed to stand up, I came face to face with none other than Bradley. He smirked. You took too long to answer. And then it was Black Chapter Fatito. My head felt heavy as I groaned. What the had happened? Am I cowled and I remember anything? Finally, you're awake. A familiar voice caused me to suddenly open my eyes. Bradley stood there smirking at me. Seeing his face made me realize what the hell happened. The bomb. Bradley coming. Oh God, where was Eleanor? I struggled against my restraints, trying to look for Eleanor. If this bastard touched her, I would kill him. Bradley noticed me struggling and just laughed. You won't manage to get out of these. Your Lycan is weak from that blast. This novel will be daily updated at. Bradley looked pleased with himself. But this idiot didn't realize why I was struggling. Where's Eleanor? Oh, you're looking for her. She is back in the arms of her mate. My little brother, Bradley replied. He kept his word. I can't believe that. This man was to be trusted. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I do keep my word. Plus, she was of no use to me anyway. You're either one I really wanted. Bradley shrugged his shoulders. How pathetic that you had to place a bomb to kidnap me. You clearly can't take on Apollo without playing dirty. Bradley growled and was about to lunge at me, but stopped. I am going to kill his mate. I am going to kill him. So I win. I always win. What exactly do you get out of this? No power. No throne. Trying to stall him so Apollo had a chance to find me. I get revenge. Revenge on the man who did this to my face. Who cast me off and gave my little brother more power. The power comes from the satisfaction that I broke Apollo. I broke the king. Bradley looked. Menacing, you're insane. How could you kidnap your own brother's mate? I shook my head in disbelief. Very easily because my brother never helped me. He stood there and watched. He was dead to me from the moment he took that position. Bradley growled. All this power has got to your head. You can't even see the bigger picture. And that will be your biggest downfall. You'll realize it too late. To my agent extraordinaire, Webnovel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. How you're telling me about my downfall. This novel will be daily updated at you are the one who is tied to this chair and moments from her death. Bradley shook his head at me. Yes, because I can't tell you when I'm dead. I shrugged my shoulders. Yes, darling. Just kill her already. A familiar voice had me gasping. Bradley looked at my shocked state and laughed. That you didn't expect that. Did you? What the hell was Savannah doing here? Savannah smirked at me. For the first time I've made you speechless. What the hell are you doing here? Savannah rolled her eyes and stood by Bradley, who called her close to him. My eyes darted between them both before the realization settled in. Your mates? I breathed out. Yes, she's mine. Bradley smirked. But what about Apollo and your uncle? I asked Savannah, confused. She laughed and shook her head. I thought you were smart. I have never liked Dimitri. Nettle own laughed. After what he did to my mate. Why would I even want to spend time with him voluntarily? So this was all part of your plan. Bradley looked at Savannah and said, might as well tell her since she'll be dead before she can tell anyone. Savannah laughed. I met Bradley months ago when I went with my uncle to visit the prisons. Some sort of safety check. I knew he was my mate as soon as we made eye contact. I came back later that night and broke him out. Seeing him in that position was awful. Then he told me what Dimitri did to him, and we planned our revenge. I made my uncle believe that I had a human mate who was dying so he would pose me to mate with Dimitri. The plan was to break him before he mated me. What we didn't account for was him finding his mate. That worked in our favor, but we had to have you believe I was that jealous ex. Otherwise, you'd be suspicious. Meanwhile, Bradley was planning Dimitri's takedown using his own mate you. Apollo finding you really helped us. Killing you would kill Apollo, and he would be off that throne. Payback for what he did to me. Bradley smirked. Bradley pulled Savannah closer to him, and they both began making out. How vile. I gagged, but they paid me no attention as they carried on eating each other's faces off. Well, you guys are really made for each other. Sarcasm dripped from my voice. Since deceit is your middle name, this novel will be daily updated at, but I must say this plan you have really is amazing. Except for one mistake. Underestimating Apollo. Causing them to break apart. What makes you think I am underestimating him? Bradley asked. Well, for starters, you actually believe that you will manage to kill me before he gets here. I don't think you know the power of the mate bond just yet. I raised my eyebrows. To my agent extraordinaire, Webnovel. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Kill her already. Prove her wrong. Savannah snapped. Time to say goodbye to this world. Your Majesty. Bradley stalked toward me. However, a bang stopped him in his tracks. He growled and turned around. A Lycan frantically ran in, not realizing he interrupted Bradley. They found us. He rushed out. who Bradley was shaking in anger. "Apollo," I answered. Bradley let out a huge growl before snapping the Lycan's neck with no hesitation. The poor Lycan's dead body fell to the ground, and Bradley kicked it in frustration. This man had no respect. "However did he find us?" Savannah paced the room. "Because the both of you got too cocky," I replied before snapping the restraints that held me. I stood up and threw the chair at Savannah, who ducked just in time. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." "I will kill you." Bradley stalked toward me. "Come on then," I taunted. Bradley lunged at me, but I moved out of the way. He pulled my leg, so I tripped and hit the floor. I quickly stood up and kicked Bradley in the balls. He fell back down the ground in pain. "Sorry, Apollo. I may not have used your training on this one. Just my instincts." Savannah screeched as she jumped on my back, pulling my hair. "This novel will be daily updated, that bitch. She's been a thorn in my side ever since I first met my mate." "Her time was up, VC," I growled. My Lycan was not happy with this bitch. I elbowed her in the stomach, making her loosen her grip. I used this opportunity to grab her hands and swing her over my head so she hit the floor. She groaned in pain. Damn it. She was still alive. Bradley stood up, growling as his mate screamed in pain. "You bitch." He caught me off guard by slapping me around the face, but I was about to let him get away with that. This time I used Apollo's training by punching Bradley right in the face. "Take that, you bastard." He barely had any time to recover before I kicked him in the back, causing him to fall forward and hit the floor. A loud growl caused objects to rattle and my hairs to stand on end. That meant only one thing. Apollo was here, and he was pissed. My thoughts were confirmed by him storming in his eyes pitch black as they looked for something. As soon as those eyes connected with mine, Apollo strode over and picked me up. He breathed my scent in and buried his face into my neck. "You're safe. Thank God. Well, guess you get to witness me killing your beloved mate." Bradley's voice broke us apart. "I think you'll need help with that." Another familiar voice made my red water run cold. Apollo's hold tightened on me as Beckett stepped out of the shadows with a sinister smile on his face. "Beckett." "No," I breathed, unable to process the scene in front of me. "See. Oh, I wish I had a camera to record this. Your faces are priceless." Bradley clapped his hands, laughing at our shock. "How do you think Laxmi was drugged? This novel will be daily updated at how did I sneak in without anyone noticing me?" "Beckett." "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." Savannah was still not as trusted as I had hoped, but luckily Beckett here helped me out. He was the one that drugged your precious mate. Bradley revealed Beckett's betrayal. Apollo looked heartbroken his best friend betrayed him. I couldn't believe it. Why? He was happy, or at least I thought he was. What about his own mate? Olivia was a part of this too. I know what you're thinking. Why? I did this because a change was needed. Dimitri was a good king, but things needed to change. I overheard Savannah on the phone to Bradley, and I decided Bradley was the best chance I had to take Dimitri down. Beckett explained. "How could you? You betrayed your own best friend." My heart broke for Apollo, who was still silent. Bradley rolled his eyes. "Enough chit-chat. You hold Apollo down. He'll kill his mate." Beckett nodded and stalked toward us. Before anything could happen, Apollo laughed. He laughed so much that both men looked at each other in confusion. I looked at Apollo in worry. What the hell had happened to him? "I think it's so funny that you truly believe you have the upper hand here," Apollo said once he had calmed down. Bradley looked frustrated. "Yes, I do. Look around. No one is here to save you. Your best friend is on my side, and I am going to kill your mate." Apollo growled and pulled me closer to his side. "No. You got too cocky, and you never saw the bigger picture." Bradley tried to lunge for me, but Beckett pulled him back and hit him round the head with a pole. What did I just miss? Both Beckett and Apollo nodded at each other before Miles came in with a bunch of other Lycans. Did I get hit around the head? What was going on here? You all okay? Miles asked. The men nodded, while I stood there with my mouth hanging open. Beckett and Miles picked up Bradley's unconscious body and moved him away. Apollo better explain what there was going on. This novel will be daily updated. I turned to him for an explanation when I noticed Savannah getting up and getting ready to attack. I growled and lunged at her before she could do anything. I pushed her down on the ground and said, "Time for you to join your mate." I didn't have a pole or a weapon, so I hit her head against the floor instead. Her limp body was then carried out by some warriors. Apollo looked at me and smirked. She angered you. You try being locked in a room with her and she taunting you. Stupid girl. Dimitri, let's go before he wakes up, Miles said. No way. You better explain to me what just happened. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Apollo looked thoughtful before replying. Well, I am pretty sure you just hit Savannah's head on the concrete with no hesitation. You know what I am talking about. Don't act smart with me. Apollo picked me up and walked out of the door with me. I was unimpressed, but it was clear I was getting my answers here. We sat in the car, and I tried to figure out where we were, but Apollo stopped me. You were kidnapped, hurt, and you can't just sit still or faint in my arms. I'm not like that. So much happened back there. I need to know everything. Plus, I want to know where I am. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Apollo grabbed my head and smiled. You will, but you have to be patient. I opened my mouth to argue. This novel will be daily updated, however. That didn't happen as Apollo crashed his lips to mine and stuck his tongue straight into my mouth. Thus, holy crap. This was making my eggs weak. Apollo could kiss. And very well. When he pulled apart, the bastard had a smirk on his face. Perfect way to get you to shut up. I weakly glared at him, but that just caused him to laugh as he drove away and kept me in suspense. Chapter 33. Apollo drove painfully slowly. Or maybe it was because I was impatient and wanted to know what the hell was going on. When he finally decided to pull into the palace, both our eyes whipped around at the same time. Panic was on our faces as we both smelled an overwhelming amount of red water. Without wasting any time, we both jumped out of the car and rushed toward the palace. It seemed as though these were Bradley's Lycans. The beautiful guardians of the palace were now stained with red water. My gaze found my family, who were bravely fighting against the Lycans. It was a red water bath, one that needed to end now, before any more of our fighters died. I couldn't give a damn about the others. Enough, Apollo shouted, causing everyone to stop fighting. This novel will be daily updated. Add a power of the king, you couldn't deny him. Your leader has been caught. Your game is over. Stop this fighting and we may offer you mercy, Apollo announced. We fight to the death. One Lycan yelled and gained support from the others. They resumed fighting, and Apollo growled, so be it. Apollo turned to Beckett, who was standing there ready to fight. But Apollo shook his head. Take those two down to the cells. We don't want these idiots trying to free them while we fight. Beckett nodded and took a few guards with him. Both Apollo and I turned to each other and smirked. My Lycan was eager to show these who they messed with. Without wasting another second, I let my Lycan take over. My gaze snapped over to a Lycan who was getting a good hold on t:Wolf. I growled and ran toward them, reaching for the guy's hair. I pulled him back and stood on his neck. He clawed at me but to no avail. His head was torn off by Olivia. I turned back around to see t:Wolf, who was hurt. But luckily it was too bad. My family would not be hurt in this battle. Not on my watch. This novel will be daily updated, and I picked up t:Wolf and rushed him inside to safety. He limped over to a quiet place before shifting back and limping out. Luckily my Lycan had calmed down, and Darius smiled at me. Wow, my smiley have changed so much. Look at you. All confident and strong. Why thank you. It was the perfect opportunity to show off my new skills. I winked. Darius laughed and replied, I guess you better get back out there. Sighing. I nodded. You stay here. Don't do anything stupid and wait for help. This novel will be daily updated and I do not doubt that Stella will come running in soon. I warned him. A smile made its way onto his face. Yeah, I know she will. So in love. I left. Shut up and go to your mate. Darius rolled his eyes. Grinning, I left Darius in the pack house. Stella rushed past me, clearly only having eyes for her injured mate. Laxmi, Apollo shouted. A crazed Lycan headed straight for me. But before I could do anything, a familiar figure stood in front of me and ripped the head off the Lycan. Damien turned around and raised his eyebrows. Where were you? Lost? Laxmi, what the hell? He could have seriously hurt you. This novel will be daily updated at Apollo rushed over, his eyes checking me for injuries. Sorry, I replied sheepishly. Damien just looked at me in amusement, while Apollo shook his head. It's time to end this. Brother, Damien told Apollo, who nodded in agreement. Both brothers looked amazing as they plowed through Lycans, their lifeless bodies dropping to the floor like flies. When it was all over, Apollo looked at my family and said, Head inside with the others. We have some business to attend to. They all nodded, and Arya squeezed my hand for support. Luna and Alia both came with us as we made our way to the cells. My heart broke for the poor fighters we lost today. The magnificent gardens now swimming in red water. It was a nice sight. Hey, you were meant to explain Beckett's double agent role to me. I stopped Apollo in his tracks. He just moved me to one side while muttering. Later, I scoffed and stood in front of him. Later my ass. Tell me now. He opened his mouth to refuse, but I put my hands on my hips and glared at him. This novel will be daily updated at I wanted to know now. Before Apollo sweeps it under the rug and never tells me. Damien snickered, causing Apollo to give him a dirty look. Fine. Don't tell me. No sex for a month. I shrugged my shoulders and continued to walk away, leaving Apollo standing there in shock. I knew the no-sex ban would affect him more than me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nelban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing enthusiasm. I was proven right by Apollo pulling me back and replying, I'll tell you, while we walk. Satisfied. I nodded, which made the others laugh. She's got you wrapped around her finger. Brother. Damien laughed. Wait till you get your mate. It isn't easy to deny her. Apollo sighed. At that, Damien became silent and smiled sadly. It was clear he longed for his mate, but he never showed it. You know that Beckett overheard Savannah talking to Bradley. This novel will be daily updated that he decided to make Savannah believe he also hated me. Only after she believed him did he come and tell me. And we made a plan. Beckett pretended to hate me while gathering intel, but he had to gain their trust, which meant helping them with their dirty plans. He knew nothing about the little girl, but with my commission, he drugged you. Beckett felt extremely guilty after that incident and was going to confront Bradley. I stopped him. We were so close to our end goal. After much persuasion on my part and Olivia S., Beckett finally calmed down. Woe was so. I knew our patience would pay off, especially since Bradley was so wrapped up in his own damn world. Apollo explained. Wow was all I managed to say. Such an elaborate plan, but I knew nothing about it. I opened my mouth to ask why I didn't know but then closed it again. Thinking about it, Apollo did the right thing because the fewer people who knew, the better. This novel will be daily updated at guilt ate me alive as I realized that I was rude to Beckett, thinking he had betrayed Apollo. King Apollo Dimitri Gray. A voice broke me out of my thought process. Apollo stopped dead in his tracks and growled. Even Damien tensed up. Who then was it? I turned around to see a middle-aged man with grey hair walking toward us with a smirk on his face. In his hand was a piece of paper that he was proudly holding like it was some trophy. This novel will be daily updated at Apollo tense considerably, causing me to glare at this man. After much deliberation, the council and I have decided it is time for you to step down from the throne. This man said. Oh, he was from the council. Should have recognized his awful voice. You have? For what reason? May I ask? Apollo seemed very calm. Look at the state of your palace. And you still haven't captured the man responsible. I know we gave you a time limit, but he really should have been captured by now. If you can't handle that, then how can you be responsible for all the innocent lives? This man was getting on my nerves. Before Apollo could reply, I made my way to the front and glared at this idiot. You're acting like other packs haven't had wars before. I'm sure this isn't the first time you are seeing the aftermath of a battle. He didn't look too pleased with my answer. I was talking to the king. Well, I'm the queen, so whatever you say to my mate, you say to me. I fake smiled. He huffed and opened his mouth, but I stopped him. Before any more rubbish comes out of that mouth of yours, I would like to educate you on a few very important points. Firstly, you should think before you open that mouth of yours. Apollo has captured the culprit and we were actually heading over there right now, before you rudely interrupted us. Secondly, you think that some paper with a few signatures is really going to remove Apollo from the throne. You're just proving how dumb you can be. When the people love him, what are a few stupid signatures from a few old men who are just jealous? This novel will be daily updated at lastly. The biggest mistake you will ever make is thinking Apollo to be weak. When he is me and his family supporting him, he will never be weak. Now I think you know too off. We have better things to be doing. This man's jaw dropped to the ground while Apollo wrapped his hand around my waist and smiled down at me, his love shining through his eyes. You heard my queen. Off, Apollo told the councilman. I think this is useless. Damien walked over and grabbed the piece of paper right out of his hands before tearing it into small pieces. Without waiting, we walked away. Oh, that was priceless. I wish I had my phone to take a picture of that bastard's face. Miles laughed. Who knew you had it in you? Damien smirked at me. I knew. She's my little spitfire. Apollo smiled at me. Well, I had to say something. He was kissing me off. I rolled my eyes. You're incredibly strong. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Damien told me. I smiled at him while Apollo held my hand. We made our way to the cells. The atmosphere changed. Miles clutched Luna's hand, probably for the support. Apollo and I both looked at each other before walking in. Bradley and Savannah were both conscious now, while Savannah looked distressed. Bradley looked calm. Beckett came over and shook his head. He hasn't said anything. I looked over at Bradley, who had a small smirk on his face. Bastard still thought he had the upper hand. We stood solemnly in the corner, his hard gaze focused on his older brother. Eleanor was nowhere to be seen. She was probably resting, and I doubt Reese would have wanted her in front of Bradley again. Silent treatment, huh? You do realize that all your men are dead. You have no one to help you. Apollo scoffed. Bradley kept his composure, but I saw the fear in his eyes. It was only for a split second, but it was there. He was just pretending to be calm. He was freaking out inside. I could still kill your mate. Just one snap of her neck and her lifeless body will be lying by your feet. Bradley replied. Damien Apollo growled at him, causing Bradley to smirk. He just wanted a reaction, and he got one. Bradley stood up and walked toward the bars, taunting Apollo. I could wrap my hands around her little neck in one movement. Apollo was breathing heavily now, his Lycan close to taking control. Looking at Bradley, I realized why he was taunting Apollo. If Apollo lost control, HUD break Bradley out of his cell to finish him, and Bradley planned to gain the upper hand. He could get away if he threatened to kill me or anyone else. Nice try. Smart ass. Nice try. I walked over to Apollo and placed my hand on his chest. Don't let this pathetic man's words get to you. He wants you to get angry. Apollo grabbed my hand like it was his lifeline. This time it was my turn. You think you are so smart. But guess what? I'm smarter. Well, you just use your mate to execute your plans. My mate treats me like his equal. That is why you've lost. Because you underestimated us. Apollo is king for good reason and looks like you've just found that out. Bradley growled. Come closer and let me show you who is stronger. I laughed and turned to Beckett. Bring her out. Beckett nodded and brought out Savannah, who was struggling but to no avail. I saw Bradley's eyes narrow in confusion, and I smirked. Since you're so dead set on killing me, I think it's only fair that Apollo kill your mate. To my agent extraordinaire, Myelin Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I think a lady should kill a lady. Oh wait, I mean a bitch. I looked at Savannah. Panic settled in her eyes, and she struggled against Beckett's grip, as if I believe you will actually kill my mate. You don't have it in you. Bradley scoffed. Bradley, you've got to help me. Don't let me die. Savannah wailed. Babe, she is bluffing, as if she will kill you. It's just a plan to get a reaction out of me. Bradley laughed. Bluffing. Me, my Lycan was angry at the disrespect. And so was I. This bastard was underestimating me, and I did not like that. Growling, I grabbed Savannah out of Beckett's grip and pushed her toward Bradley's cell. I didn't even hesitate as I wrapped my hand around her neck and snapped it. Disbelief and anger flashed through Bradley's eyes as he watched Savannah's body drop to the floor, her lifeless eyes staring right at him. It was silent for a moment before Bradley crashed against the bar, screaming, "I'll kill you! I'll kill you!" Apollo stood in front of me and smirked. You wanted to kill my mate, but look where that got you. He looked at Beckett and Miles. Sedate him. I don't want him escaping. Bradley thrashed and screamed red watery murder, his eyes now black as his Lycan took over. After much hassle, he was sedated. His unconscious body fell to the floor with a thump. Now what? Damien asked. We leave him here. Savannah's body shouldn't move from here either. The first thing he should see is her eyes staring at him. He will escape. A Lycan without his mate can go feral. Miles reminded one. Then he dies. Tomorrow morning. Apollo decided. Everyone nodded, apart from Reese, who stood in the corner, looking at his brother. Goodbye, brother. For good this time, Reese finally said before walking out of the cells. I don't know about you, but I thought Laxmia's move was super badass. Beckett winked. I laughed and replied, You haven't seen anything yet. Super bad, awesome, super sexy. Apollo whispered in my ear, causing me to giggle. Okay. Let's keep it PG here, please. Miles shuddered. I cheers talking as if he doesn't have sex with his mate every day. Apollo mumbled, causing Luna to blush and Miles to quickly walk away with Luna in tow. As we walked out of the cells, I turned to Apollo. Now what happens? He smiled and said, Now begins our forever. Chapter 34. My body was exhausted as we made our way back to the palace. My eyes found the red watery field where all those Lycans laid. Those that fought for us, not against us. Apollo squeezed my hand. Those brave Lycans did not die in vain. I will make sure they get a proper burial. I know you will. I smiled sadly. I know who will be happy to see you. Luna called out. What? Confused. As we entered the palace, a blow ran toward me and picked me up. To my agent extraordinaire, Myelin Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Put me down. I laughed. Oh, Smiley, I'm so glad you're okay. Darius put me down as his eyes ran up and down to check for any injuries. What about your injury? One touch and you're out for the rest of the battle. Darius pouted. That's no fair. You're Lycan now. Much stronger than me. Apollo cleared his throat before pulling me back toward him and placing a hand round my waist. A smile made its way onto my face when I realized Apollo was jealous. I wanted to laugh, but I kept it in knowing it was the right time. Thank you for all your help. Apollo sounded like he was talking to a stranger. No problem. We're family now. My best friend and sister, in-law, are a part of your pack. This novel will be daily updated at Family Helps Family Out. Darius smiled at me. Yeah. Which means family doesn't get jealous of family. I whispered to Apollo, who just glared at me. I'm a jealous man. Baby. I can't help it. Apollo whispered back. What are you two whispering about? Darius asked. Trust me. You don't want to know. Miles muttered but was elbowed by Luna, who shook her head. Nothing. Don't worry about it. I answered. You better not keep any more secrets from me. Smiley. Unless it's about your sex life, because I really. Darius trailed off as a loud cough interrupted him. My dad stood there, with the I don't want to know what my daughter does with her mate look on his face. If only they knew. Apollo mumbled in my hair, causing me to bury my face in Apollo's chest. Totally mortified. I will get Darius back for that. The last thing I needed was my dad finding out about my sex life. Oh, my baby. Look at you. Mom came over and pulled me out of my embarrassing moment by hugging me. I'm okay. Mom, honestly. I hugged her back. A mom's hug makes everything better. I swear. Yeah. Your daughter's a badass. Damien smirked. Tell us something we don't know. Dev made his presence known by ruffling my hair. I scowled at him as I attempted to fix it. This novel will be daily updated. I just smiled and ruffled it again. I did not miss that. But obviously he did. As much as I would love to sit with you all and chat. I need a shower and my bed. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylen Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Of course you do. Go rest. We will be here till tomorrow. My dad replied, giving me a quick hug. After saying my goodbyes, I made my way upstairs, desperate for a shower. Apollo stayed down to make sure my family was okay. It didn't take me long to enter my room, take off the dirty clothes, and enter the shower. The warm water hitting my skin made me sigh. It felt like today was a never-ending day. I took my time washing my hair and scrubbing my skin till it was red. When I finally decided to come out, the smell of food made my stomach crumble. Quickly, I got dressed and was surprised to see a whole spread of food. Apollo said there, smiling, you took your time. I was afraid I would need to come in there and grab you before the food went cold. You were afraid? I find that hard to believe. Apollo laughed. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylen Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Sure. You'll remember that next time you want to shower together. I rolled my eyes. Come on. You need to eat. Apollo grabbed my hand and sat me down next to him. He was right. I needed food. So without wasting a second, I grabbed a plate and filled it up with all sorts of delicious food. Eating like a lady didn't even occur to me as I stuffed my face. When I had eaten enough, I collapsed on the bed with a loud sigh. Satisfied. Apollo chuckled. Very. I can't believe it's over. Apollo looked at me with worry in his eyes. You're thinking that something else is going to happen, aren't you? Apollo nodded, and I shook my head, standing up and heading over to him. Don't. We've won this battle. Apollo, Bradley won't be causing us any more trouble. This novel will be daily updated at. I'm sure the council will leave us alone for now too. I laughed at the end. Yes, thanks to my amazing mate. Apollo smiled. I dramatically flipped my hair. I know. I'm just too good. Apollo pulled me toward him and groaned. You know how much you've tortured me today. The number of times I've had to hide my heart, and if I were all. Everyone. Laughter escaped my mouth before I could stop it. Thinking about Adoni, trying to hide his boner, just made me laugh even more. You think that's funny? He rolled his eyes. It is just a little. I tried to stop laughing. Before I knew it, Apollo had picked me up and threw me on the bed, causing me to squeal. The laughter stopped as soon as I saw his eyes. He crawled up the bed with a smirk on his face. It's a good thing I don't have to hide my heart on anymore tonight. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Oh my. Apollo's smirk never left his face as he bent down and nipped my ear. My little mate has nothing to say. My parents, I tried to come up with an excuse, are on a completely different floor. You know, this whole floor is just ours. My love. Apollo tried not to laugh at me, but my brain had nothing else to say. And Apollo humored me while leaving little kisses from my ear to my, causing me to shiver. Suddenly it was like my brain stopped working. I couldn't think of anything else but the pleasure Apollo was causing me. Are you afraid? Little one. You look like you want to devour me. I admitted. And that makes you afraid? Apollo looked at me, concerned. No, it makes me nervous. My body is going to hurt like a bitch tomorrow. Apollo let out a sigh. I thought you were afraid. I wouldn't do anything if you felt like that. But now I know you do want this. He wasted no time in pulling down my pants and latching onto my core. I arched my body off the bed, feeling Apollo's skillful tongue work its magic. That comes after. Let me taste you first. Apollo smirked. Lick after lick. Apollo tortured me as my body thrashed around. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Loban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Please, I begged. Not now. Don't you dare let go before I say so. Apollo said. I let out a cry of frustration, but that turned into a moan as Apollo inserted the fingers and pumped them in out of my core. Oh God. Apollo. I count this novel will be daily updated as I struggled to form even a sentence. Apollo's response was to pump his fingers even faster. One lick of my core, and I couldn't hold it in any longer. I screamed as I felt my juices spill out. My head fell back on the pillow as I breathed heavily to catch my breath. Apollo took out his fingers, and I watched as he licked them clean. You disobeyed me. You did. But it's hard. Maybe so, but you still disobeyed me. I think a punishment is in order, Apollo said, a wicked glint in his eyes. He stood up and walked into the closet before coming out with a silk piece of cloth. What are you going to do? He didn't answer, instead lifting my hands and holding them behind my head. Realization crossed my face as I struggled. But it was no use. Apollo used the silk cloth to tie my hands to the bedpost. Do not move. If you decide to escape, then he'll have to punish you even more. Apollo told me. I could easily get out of this. But seeing his face made me think otherwise. Plus, a part of me couldn't help but get turned on. Stupid hormones. Apollo ripped my top, causing me to gasp. There are so many things I want to do to you, little one, but we have plenty of time. Right now all I want to do is bury my cock in your tight pussy. Dirty talk. He knew how much I loved that. I watched as Apollo took off his clothes. So slowly, my hands were itching to rip them off, and I groaned in frustration. This was part of his punishment, and punishment it was. Apollo, I groaned. No, don't do it. Little one, Apollo warned. I closed my eyes and willed my brain to think about something else. A growl thrashed those thoughts. Eyes on me. Don't let them close. Apollo growled. This was absolute torture. But I did what he said. This novel will be daily updated. My eyes were glued to his hazel ones as he still took his sweet time taking off his clothes. I struggled around in the bed, begging him to hurry up. But he just stood there with a triumphant mark on his face. Now you know not to disobey me. I can make the punishments worse. All right. Yes, I've learned my lesson. Please, would you just me already? I cried out. Apollo ripped off the rest of his clothes in a split second, at himself by my core, which was begging for him to enter me. Is this what you want? Apollo teased his cock by my entrance. Oh God. Please. Apollo. I lifted my core to try and encourage him. Slowly, Apollo edged forward. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Loban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. So close. All this teasing was torture. Just you wait. Apollo, I will pay you back the favor. Apollo, a loud voice called, causing us both to jump. No, this was not happening. Ignore it. They'll go away. Apollo, they yelled again. Are you kidding me? I yelled. Apollo grabbed my hips so I didn't move. He also seemed pissed. I'm busy off. Apollo, you need to come now. Beckett's voice yelled. You, Beckett. Do you know what the hell is going on here? Apollo released my hips and stood up. Sighing, I tore the silk to free my hands and stood up. Frustrated and horny. Just my luck too. I swear to you, if this isn't a matter of life and death, I will throw Beckett in the cells for a day. Apollo stood there, shocked, as I stormed into the bathroom and washed my flushed face. Whatever it was, I didn't really want to go out there with a face that red. I was so close to being. Quickly getting dressed again, I exited the bathroom and saw Apollo dressed, with a solemn look on his face. Well, the sooner we get this over with, the sooner I can be back on this bed and get the orgasm I so desperately deserve. We both exited our room and saw Beckett standing there with an unreadable LICTUCN 118 CLISIUI order. Apollo stood there, shocked, as I stormed into the bathroom and washed my flushed face. Whatever it was, I didn't really want to go out there with a face that red. I was so close to being. Quickly getting dressed again, I exited the bathroom and saw Apollo dressed, with a solemn look on his face. Well, the sooner we get this over with, the sooner I can be back on this bed and get the orgasm I so desperately deserve. We both exited our room and saw Beckett standing there with an unreadable expression on his face. What is it? Apollo asked. There is a situation downstairs. Beckett looked at me and hesitated. What the hell? Was it one of my family members? What situation? A little sliver of worry made its way in. Laxmi, if you don't come here this very second, I will kill everyone you love. A familiar voice shouted. My eyes widened with shock as I registered the voice. Holy shit. This was bad. Very bad. My gaze snapped toward Apollo, who clenched his jaw and stormed downstairs, the anger radiating off him in waves. This novel will be daily updated as he was close to losing control. And that wouldn't be good for anyone. Why can't we have one normal day? I rushed downstairs, all thoughts of sex pushed out of my mind. Yes, being a queen comes before my own pleasure. Chapter 35. My red water ran cold as I saw Stella held hostage by none other than Cade. A knife was pressed against Stella's neck, and a bomb was strapped to Cade's chest. My whole family was tense as they surrounded Cade. Luna was being held back by Miles. Her need to protect her sister was clear to me. Apollo was already growling at Cade. Guards surrounded the place, just waiting for Apollo's command. I knew they could very easily kill him, but it was Stella and the bomb that got me worried. As soon as I was down, his eyes connected with mine. My heart was racing, but I willed myself to stay calm. This was a delicate situation. Laxmi, you're here. Cade breathed, smiling at me. Apollo stood in front of me, blocking Cade from seeing me. Let me see her, Cade demanded. Apollo scoffed. I don't take orders from you. Mutt. He was struggling to stay in control. His voice became deeper. I squeezed his hand, and his tense shoulders relaxed. Just a little. Cade growled. Let me see her. This time he pressed the knife against Stella's neck, causing her to whimper. This novel will be daily updated at Darius, who was being held back by Damien, struggled against Damie and Nesgrip. I'll kill you. I will tear you, limb for limb. Darius seethed, his possessiveness for his mate showing. He was no longer the playful alpha, but a very angry one instead. Luna growled, attempting to lunge at Cade, but Miles held her back. Luna was easier to control than a certain Lycan. If Apollo got angry, it wouldn't be pretty. His Lycan was close to taking over. Stella wouldn't get hurt because of me, so I pushed Apollo aside and let Cade see me. Obviously Apollo didn't like that, but I grabbed his hand again, hoping he got the idea. You're different now. Cade looked at me with adoration in his eyes. That adoration was what I wanted to see all those months ago. Now it just made me sick. The only person I wanted to see that in was standing right beside me. I'm a Lycan now. I kept all emotion away from my voice. A beautiful one at that. Cade replied. Apollo growled, but I pulled him back. The Cade I knew would never do anything to harm anyone. I hoped he was still in there. What do you want? You, he replied simply. Again. I felt Apollo's anger building up. I needed to diffuse this and quick. What makes you think he'll come with you? My eyebrows raised. You're mine. I've come to fulfill my promise to you, Cade stated. This time it was Darius who growled. Laxmi isn't yours. She never was. This novel will be daily updated at she was born to be a queen, she was born to be the king's mate. What promise are you talking about? You broke that when you stepped out of the car with your mate. Remember? Cade's gaze snapped to Darius. I don't have a mate. Confusion was etched on our faces. What was he talking about? Did something happen to Lana? I will have one soon though. His gaze snapped to mine. Cade, you need to let Stella go. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nolben. Hearts out thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Walking closer to him, Apollo growled at the loss of contact. His stance turning predatory. He was ready to attack if Cade laid a finger on me. Let Stella go. I won't come any closer to you otherwise. I attempted to negotiate. So you'll come with me. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nolben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. His grip loosened on the knife. I saw this, and thankfully Stella did too, without wasting a second. She elbowed Cade in the stomach while I grabbed the knife so she could escape. Cade collapsed onto the floor, and I chucked the knife far away. Get that bomb off him and chuck him in the dungeons. Apollo barked orders and dragged me away from Cade. She cheated on me, Cade whispered. I stopped in my tracks and turned back around. Cade looked at me brokenly. The bond had been ripped off Cade, but he didn't seem to care about that. Darius looked at me and back at Cade. Lana, he asked. Cade nodded slowly. Tears formed in his eyes, and he shook his head to try and clear them. Why when? Darius asked. I found out just before you came here and left me in charge. She was acting weird the past few months, and I couldn't figure out why. This novel will be daily updated at I followed her when she left our house, and she drove for about 15 minutes before stopping at this house. She didn't even knock, she had a key and walked straight in. I heard a little boy shout, "Mummy," and my heart broke. In that moment, I thought she had a child that she hid from me because she was worried about my reaction. But then I heard a man's voice. He was telling her how much he loved her and missed her. Nana said she missed him too. My own mate telling another man she loved him. I went to confront her when she told him that she would be rejecting me soon. She couldn't bear to live without him and her son. But I didn't give her the satisfaction of rejecting me. I burst and unrejected her. Instead of remorse, she was actually happy. While my heart shattered, she jumped into the arms of that man. She didn't even care that I was standing right there. Cade was broken by the end of his story. Stella clutched onto Darius, while Darius looked distraught. The two have always been so close. Hearing what Cade went through would have hurt Darius too. I think everyone felt the pain. Your mate is meant to be your best friend, your lover. But for Cade, that was the case. The pain he felt was all because of his mate. I felt anger building up inside me. Lana knew the effects of the mate bond, but still she played with Cade. Apollo stepped up behind me, and his presence soothed the anger that was threatening to escape. I couldn't help the tears that fell. Cade wasn't malicious or possessive, he was broken. This novel will be daily updated as he had been broken in the worst possible way. My mate had a family. She didn't want me. The mate bond made her stay with me, but she never wanted me. She just used me. Broke my heart and left. Cade whispered. I walked toward Cade and knelt down so I was face to face. Apollo's anger was evident, but I turned to him and shook my head. Cade was going to do anything. I was sure of it. Cade, I whispered. His eyes shot up to mine. Sadness, anguish, and devastation were shining through. I know it's tough. Rejection isn't easy. But you can't let her win. What she did to you was awful. But you're stronger than that. You are one of the strongest people I know. There is someone out there for you. Someone who is worthy of your love. And we both know that someone isn't me. I smiled sadly. Cade sighed. I know. You were never meant to be mine. Darius was right. You were born to be the king's mate. I guess my anger blinded me. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. Darius spoke up. What you went through is something I don't wish upon anyone. Your feelings got the better of you, but owning up to your mistakes is something admirable. You've always been there for me, so this time I'm here for you. Cade smiled sadly. Thanks, man. But I'm stepping down from my role as beta. I don't deserve it. Not after all of this. Darius laughed. Don't even think about it. I won't find a better beta for the pack. You're staying, but I'll let you have a few weeks off. Go and travel. Explore new places. And who knows? Maybe you'll find someone. Cade cringed. I think my heart is closed off. Never say never. I reminded him. Thanks. Laxmi. You really are one of the best people I know. Cade smiled. Apollo made his presence known. Grabbing my hand so I was standing, it was a sign of possession. I wanted to roll my eyes, but instead I just smiled at him, and he pulled me closer to his side. Come on, man, let's go home. I don't want that being without the alpha or beta. Darius helped Cade stand. Smiley. I would have stayed longer if I could, but duty calls. You know, I'm always a phone call away. Darius hugged me. I understand. You have responsibilities. Make sure you ring me when you get home. This novel will be daily updated, I replied. Yes, mother. Darius joked. Aren't you guys tired? The drive is going to be so long. Luna piped up. Well, take turns driving. I'll drive first to let these guys sleep. Stella walked over to her sister and gave her a big hug. After saying our goodbyes to Darius, Stella, and Cade, everyone decided to return to their rooms. It didn't take a genius to figure out that everyone was exhausted. The past few days have been tough on everyone. Mom gave me another hug and told me that I did the right thing, even though I didn't need it. Hearing Mom say that made me feel a little better. For some reason I wasn't sure if I had betrayed Apollo by giving Cade a second chance. Apollo may be jealous and possessive, but he wasn't just. He may not like Cade, but my heart knew that he wouldn't be mad. I made my way back to my room with Apollo by my side. Sorry if I angered you. I broke the silence. You didn't. I wanted to be angry with you, but I realized I just can't be. He sighed. Why? Because you did the right thing. Cade was broken, and you saw that. You gave him a second chance. Meanwhile, I was blinded by jealousy, so wasn't thinking straight. Apollo replied, what happened to Cade was awful. All I wish for him is happiness. Seeing everyone around you in love with their mates must be hard. I released a sigh. I'll make it. But enough about Cade. I believe we were interrupted. Apollo smirked. Apollo didn't wait for me to respond, instead picking me up and walking back to our room at a fast pace. Clearly someone was eager. He threw me on the bed, and that predatory look was back on his face. I found myself getting excited, but I didn't want to give him the satisfaction. He left me on edge. Now it was payback time. I yawned and said, "NOL low night. I'm exhausted. I need sleep." His face changed to one of shock as I got into the covers and closed my eyes. What the? I heard him mutter. It took everything in me not to burst out laughing as he got changed and climbed into bed, sounding like a child. Well, see, my parents are here, and I want to spend time with them. I snuggled into the duvet. Cock blockers, he mumbled. A part of me felt a little guilty, but a bigger part of me was enjoying this way too much. Teasing Apollo was definitely one of my favorite things to one. Good night, Apollo. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Trying hard not to laugh. Yeah, good night, he replied. It didn't take long for him to pull me closer, so I was now facing his chest. Something about sleeping in your mate's arms was just amazing. I snuggled into Apollo's chest, and he tightened his grip around me. It didn't take long for my eyes to get heavy. The events of the last few days took its toll on my body, so I welcomed sleep with open arms. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode of the story, please give it a like. And don't forget to subscribe to get notifications for updates.